So what jobs need doing in April in the vegetable garden? Well, you won't be surprised to learn that April's a very busy month. As we now get into the springtime, the weather starts to warm up, the days start to get a bit longer. It gives us more opportunity for planting seeds and preparing our vegetable plots ready for the growing season. And in this video, I'm going to take you on a tour of my allotment and show you the things I'll be doing in the month of April. So hopefully this video will give you one or two ideas about types of things that you can do in April. And if you do like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to subscribe to the channel for future videos on how to sow and grow fruit and veg and one or two recipe ideas, don't forget to press the subscribe button. So let's go and have a look around the allotment. Now, as April's a really busy month for sowing seeds, it makes sense that I'll start this tour inside my polyhouse, and that's what I'm going to do. But before I do that, I'm going to show you some footage that I took a few weeks ago of how I changed the layout inside, and afterwards we're going to have a look at what's in there today. So last year I built the polyhouse, and it was built and completed round about the end of April, which was a little bit late for some of the seed sowing. So this year, now that I've got a bit more time, I'm going to reorganise the inside and show you what I'm going to do. This is the current layout that I completed at the end of April, May last year. These are the shelves that I put in. There's a video on the channel showing you how I made these shelves. I'm going to complete these ones today here at the end. Add the last shelf in and finish the laths off, because I'm going to need all the space I can get with all of the seeds I'm going to be sowing over the next couple of months. And in this area over here, these greens are going to be dug up where the wood is there. So my plan is I'm going to put a couple of raised beds in just where the current plants are and the wood is, and then make a path down the middle which will be covered in wood chip. All of this area here was just planted just because I had the space over the winter, and that's given me a really good harvest of winter veg. That's turnips, some parsnips, Chinese cabbage, spinach, and there are some cauliflowers here near the door which I'm probably going to leave in because I want them to grow to maturity. So that's the plan that I'm going to do. I'm going to have a re-look at the inside just to see if I can make it a little bit more efficient compared to what I did last year. As you can see, as we go inside, I've now got my raised beds, and they're ready for the sowings that I'm going to need in a few weeks' time. It's a really great environment to have those because of the enclosed nature of it, and because it will get very warm in here. I'm going to be able to grow some fantastic vegetables in there. So these are raised beds that I added, and they'll be ready for all of this over here and more as well. So these are sowings that I made some in January, the onions, some in February and some in March. So starting from the left hand side, I've got 4 trays of lettuce which I pricked out last week, and they're looking great. There's 2 varieties there, Lakeland, which are the 2 at the far end, which is probably my favourite variety of lettuce. If you've not tried that, then definitely give that a go. And at the front we have a variety that most of you will be familiar with, which is Little Gem. The onions I pricked out are now in 4 trays. 2 trays at the front of a variety called Exhibition, and they're looking absolutely fabulous. And at the back there are 2 trays of a variety called Kelsey, which I'm growing for the first time. I've wanted to get Kelsey seeds for a little while, and I managed to get some this year, which I'm really pleased about. Then in the little trays at the front we have spring onions, and then just behind that, where you see the 6 labels, that's a small tray of brassicas, kales, various varieties of cabbage, cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. Then I've got French beans, beetroot and mange too. And behind that at the back, planted last week cucumber. They've not germinated yet, but they will. Another variety of beetroot there which is called Minetta. And then there is sweet corn, which I also put in last week, and they are an early sowing, but I will put further sowings in the next couple of months as well. In the small trays with the vermiculite on top, there is celery in the back one and celeriac at the front. Now celery and celeriac, as part of the celery family, are always slow germinators, and I've only moved them today from my potting shed into here because I noticed that the weather's predicted to be quite warm over the next week, and this environment will be fantastic for them. In the tray at the front I have spinach, and this whole row of little trays here, all lined up nicely, are my flower seeds that I'm growing this year. So at the back we've got Mesopotamianthum, I think I've said that right, petunia, and in front of those we've got some cosmos. Then we've got some Elysium, which are the small ones here. Then we have some lobelia, some marigolds, some dahlias, and another variety of flowers called Catenacea. which are just starting to germinate, so they'll be grown to a certain size and then thinned out. At the back, which haven't germinated yet, are coleus. And then about 4-5 weeks ago I planted some radish in cell trays, just as an experiment really, and they're looking great, so I think I'll be able to harvest them straight out the cell tray. So if I just stand back, you can see those that we've just looked at, and I've got lots of space there, so when I start to thin out and prick out, all of this will be full of plants. And underneath I have leeks, which should be ready to harvest fairly soon. And there's the last of the remains of the winter Chinese cabbage, which is starting to go to seed a little bit now, so we'll see how they go. Jobs for today, well, you can see here my seed case, so I am going to be sowing a few more seeds, a few more varieties of beetroot and a few spring onions, and I'm also going to be pricking out another variety of onions. These are Bedfordshire Champion, so I'll probably get another couple of trays of them. And there's my seed potatoes. They'll be going in the first earlies, hopefully later this week. This is my compost tray where I do all my potting. So as you can see, there's loads of activity going on inside this polyhouse, but the way that I've redesigned it now, it gives me a good lot of access around the beds and gives me plenty of space to grow things. Just one final thing at the back here, I've got my guttering ready. Just here, it's got holes in it, which you can probably see if I just go a little bit closer. It's got all holes in it, and that's where I'm going to start off my peas, Calvert and Wonder, probably next week. So loads going on in April in the polyhouse. So this is the access path right at the back of my allotment that leads to other allotments. So I'll take you around and talk you through what I'm doing. We'll start off with the raspberries, which are over here. So a few weeks ago I cut the raspberries right back to get rid of all the canes that grew the raspberries last year, which are no good. And as you can see now, there are already some growth on them. I always do very well with raspberries, and if you look at previous videos of tours from the last couple of years, you'll see how many raspberries I actually get. So what I've got to do now, which I'm going to do over the next couple of days, I've just got to put another string, a lower string, just between the various support poles, just to hold the raspberries back at the lower side. So they're looking very healthy. And again, if you want to know how to grow raspberries, there is a video on my channel showing you how to grow them, to maintain them, right from start to finish. So I'll put a link to that in the comments below. Now just beyond the raspberries is my rhubarb, and you can see that's growing exceptionally well. It doesn't take a lot of maintenance, rhubarb. All I did at the end of the last growing season was take off any of the final shoots so that effectively you can't see anything above the ground, and then covered them with some multi-purpose compost. So all I've got to do now is weed these and they'll be absolutely fine. Always give rhubarb plenty of water, so when you are watering rhubarb, make sure you water right into the roots. So take the top off your watering can and water straight down rather than over the leaves. Just within the rhubarb patch, you'll notice that I've moved these two plants here. These are blueberry bushes, and they were in the polytunnel last year as an experiment, and to be honest it just didn't work. And to be honest, it wasn't really a surprise because they struggled to be pollinated because they was inside the polytunnel. So I've moved them out here, and what I'm probably going to do is net them over once they start to flower, just to stop the birds pecking at them. Now as you can see, there's plenty of weeding for me to do, and there always is at this time of year. Now I know you'll watch a lot of videos of people giving tours of their vegetable plots, and there won't seem to be any weeds in them. But I promise you, weeds do happen, they do exist, and they've probably cleaned their allotments up or vegetable plot before they've done the video. I don't do that. I'll try and show you the video exactly as it is, just because I know that's just reality. I don't criticise those people because they obviously work hard to get rid of the weeds for the filming anyway, so they still go through the same process as I do. I just tend to show it more on videos. Now this area here at the side of my polyhouse, that was not used last year because it was the staging area for the materials to build the polyhouse. So what I'm going to do this year, this is going to be where I'm going to grow potatoes, and I'm going to do a bit of an experiment. You'll notice from the inside of the polyhouse that the first earlies are nearly ready, and in this section here, which has got the moss on it, I'm going to put some newspaper over it, put a small layer of my own compost, and then I'm going to put the potatoes on top and cover them over with grass clippings. Yes, I am going to use the no-dig method for the first time, and I will do a video showing you how I do that, so just keep an eye on the channel just to see how they get on. At the left hand side, I'm going to do a couple of rows of traditional potatoes, which I am going to dig over and put in the ground, and then we can compare the two. Now something else I'll be doing over the next few weeks in April is dealing with my strawberries. You'll notice I've got two fairly large bays of strawberries. The strawberry bays are the ones with the timber supports, and the timber supports are there for the netting when I eventually put it on. So in April what I'll be doing is tidying up the strawberries by getting rid of any of the brown leaves, taking out and digging out the runners and making them, you can see just here, there'll be new plants for next year. I'll be planting them over here. What I do is a 3-year rotation plan, so any strawberry plants that I've had for 3 years, when they get to 3 years old, I'll dig them up, because you'll notice as strawberry plants get older, they start to be less productive. So they do produce strawberries, but they're a lot smaller. So in the area here, I've started digging them up already, and these have got to go as well, the ones nearest to the camera here, and they'll be replaced with the new plants that I'm going to take from over here. Always looks very untidy and sad at this time of year, strawberries, but when we start to get into late April and May, this will just be a complete picture of growth. And what I'll do is when the strawberries start to flower, I will net them over at that point, because by that point when they're starting to flower, it's telling you that the fruit are about to arrive and you want to protect them from the birds. So dealing with your strawberry beds is something that you will probably do in April. What I may do as well, if I get excess runners, i.e. new plants, which I always do, I may put them in hanging baskets just to give me a few extra strawberries. Not that I really need them, but I always end up giving loads away anyway. So next to the strawberries we have the garlic. Again, that's looking fabulous as well. That was planted in early November last year. That's looking very healthy. That's a variety called Solent White, and for the first time I got those from a seed merchant rather than use supermarket garlic. So I'm hoping for a good harvest of garlic this year. The supermarket garlic is okay, but I found that it just produced really small bulbs. And another reason for getting it from a seed merchant is I'll use some of the garlic to plant for next year as well, so I know the source of the garlic. And just behind the garlic, the beds are full of onions. These are onion sets that I also planted in November. Two varieties. The variety nearest the camera, the one I'm just zooming into now, that's the variety called Red Baron. And the other variety is a white onion called Century. There are a couple of shallots right at the end as well, and obviously as you can see from the camera, I need to give this a bit of a weed. So now I've just moved over to the far side of my allotment, so we're at the far end now. This long bed here, last year is where I grew my celery, and there were some potatoes at the far end, so this year it's going to be brassicas at the far end, and I'm probably going to put things like squashes and other types of things like courgettes nearest these metal supports. The metal supports will support my climbing French beans and my mange too. And as you can see in that bed, that needs to have a really good weed as well. Here I have my herb bed, which needs a bit of work. I've actually removed the raised beds around them because I wanted them for the polyhouse. So I'm going to try and think about what I need to do in these areas here. I may leave them without these surrounds and not replace them, but keep them as planting beds. So in there I've got rosemary, chives, lemon balm, but I will add things in there like parsley and other herbs as well. And in this one I've got the remains of some of my spring onions, which have been there all through the winter, so there maybe a couple of weeks I'll be able to harvest them. And behind them in this bed we have broad beans. These are the overwintering broad beans. A lot of people grow Aquidolce Claudia, but these are a similar overwintering variety, but these are called Valenciana, and they're growing really well. So I put the canes up. I just need to check the supports and tie them a little bit, but they're going to give me a good crop of broad beans. Now we'll be putting another crop in over the next week of broad beans right next to them, in the space next to them. And here we have the remains of my bird attacked turnips, which have taught me a lesson in that I will be netting them over next year. These I put in November as an experiment to see whether they would work over the winter, and to a point they did. You can see that they have got turnips, very small turnips on them, but clearly these type of vegetables need their leaves to provide food so that they grow. So next year I will be growing turnips outside, but they will be netted. And there's a few of my remaining outside leeks. These are the variety called Musselborough. And this is something that surprised me. This is spinach, and I left this in over winter just to see what would happen, and as you can see, it looks pretty healthy. I couldn't tell you what variety this is. The seeds were given to me by another allotment here, Andy. It produced so much spinach last year, and I kept monitoring it over the winter, and it always seemed to be okay, so I've just left it. So what I'm going to do is take a bit of spinach off that, which I can easily harvest today, cut it back, tidy it all up, and see if it grows again. And here, the last of my netting, this will all come out now. The wind has battered this. We've had some terrible weather over the last month or two in terms of winds, very heavy winds. All the storms that have hit the UK have also heavily hit the Midlands. And this is the remains of my netting, and I haven't really bothered too much with it because it's protecting my Swedes. But I've had so many Swedes, and you can still see there's some in there now, and they're still looking really healthy. I've already planted the Swede seeds in cell trays in the polyhouse of the same variety, and hopefully I'm going to get a similar crop for this year. Something else I just want to show you that you could do in April, something that I always really enjoy, is my own compost. So this is my compost heap that I've been building up over the last 4 to 5 months. See all the things that I put in there. I tend to put most things in there, vegetable peelings, all the waste from the allotment, and that should be ready in about 6 or 7 months. Here I've got 2 bags of coffee grounds that have been given to me by another allotment here, Andy. So they're great to put into your compost heap. So they'll go in, not all in one bulk. I'll spread them thinly in different layers in between the rest of the things I'll put in. That'll help with the decomposition process. Now, I've done a previous video showing you how to make compost as a beginner, and you'll need a mixture of greens and browns, carbons and nitrogen, and part of that is when to put coffee grounds and other types of materials like that. So check out that video, which I'll put a link in the comments below. And I've got some wood chip in here which I'm going to use on the paths, and I use that in my polyhouse for the paths in there, and you can mix that with your compost heap as well. And this is the compost that I made myself that I'm using at the moment, which I'm going to use for the no dig potatoes. That's taken around about 12 to 14 months to get to that stage, and it's absolutely fantastic. So if you are new to vegetable growing, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you start making your own compost. And you don't need the compost bins like this. If you wanted to, you could just put it all in a pile and it'll just decompose. It just makes it tidy having compost bins like this. One mistake I made, I watched a video on how to make these compost bins, and they recommended putting these pallet doors on. If I'm making them again, I'm not going to do that. It's just that the doors are quite heavy and you need to keep securing the hinges on there. It's just not worth it. So I'm going to make pallet bins with different types of frontages on, similar to here, but all the way down to the bottom where you put the panels in and take them in and out as your compost bin gets higher. Another great job to do in April is to deal with the paths between your beds, and I'll be doing that today. So as you can see, I've got plenty of grass and weeds on my path in front of my polyhouse. So what I'll be doing just in front of the polyhouse is I'll be putting some newspaper down and then putting some wood chip on top. So April is a fantastic time to deal with any paths that you've got. And if you have got spare wood chip, it's great to put on your paths because it will decompose over time. So as you can see, April is a fantastic time of year. There's so much to do, and when you have days like today, the sun is shining, it's glorious. It's not particularly warm because of the time of year, but it's absolutely fabulous, and it gives me the opportunity to get those jobs done that I've mentioned in the video. I do hope it's given you some ideas, and if there's jobs that you're doing that you would recommend that other people could do in April, then please pop them in the comments below, because it's great to share that type of information with other growers. I do hope you liked the video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to subscribe to the channel for future videos on how to sow and grow fruit and veg and 1 or 2 recipe ideas, don't forget to press the subscribe button, and I'll see you all on the next video.